And now I'm going to get into the specific overview of the stock market game and how to run it, how it works. And I want this to be interactive. If you have any questions, about how you're going to use SMG and stuff like that, you can feel free to ask. So how does the stock market work? I guess the stock market game work. How do we organize it? Well, you're going to split your students into different teams. So let's start off talking about that. So teachers can register online and request a certain number of teams. You can separate enrollment into multiple classes to make it easier for you to manage your students. So let's say you've got 7th graders and 8th graders. If you want, when you register, you can split those up into 2 distinct groups. They're still managed under one login for you, but you can, see, okay, I know it's this group here and this group here. So you're able to do that when you request, when you log in, when you create the teams the profile first, then you can request the team, so you can separate them into classes then. We recommend around 3 students per team, but you can do up to 5 in any of the competitions. We do limit it to 5. You can't do more than that, but you can go up to 5. All right, teachers will receive a login for the Teacher Support Center and a separate email that will contain logins for each requested student team. So I'm not sure if all of you have registered right now. I can't remember. But if you have, then you should have already received this information. You'll get when you sign up, you'll get an email that says it's your teacher support information, and we'll go through this and where you log in and stuff like that. But then you get another one that has all the logins for your students. Teachers will give the login info to the students for their specific team. Each team, regardless of number of students, shares the same login. So let's say you request 10 teams for your class of 25 students. Then what's going to happen is we'll email you, you'll get an email and he'll have 10 different logins, and you will keep track of on a separate spreadsheet, piece of paper, whatever you do use. Maybe you've got it in your own, maybe you've got software management that takes care of that at the school, something you do that. Who is on what team? So you would just need to know, because we don't ask for the student names. So that's one thing you do need to keep track of, is who is on what team as far as in your class goes. That's the one thing that we don't keep track of inside the system. And a lot's that because we don't deal with those issues of, do you have permission to give the names and all that kind of stuff, unless you have winners. We don't get into that. So we don't collect any student information. We don't have contact with the students directly, only with you. So that just kind of makes that a little bit easier and not have to, work with different privacy issues that may or may not exist in your schools. So, regardless of the number of teams, they all share the same login. So if you've got 2 or 3 students on the team, they will have one ID, and they'll have one password. Students can change that password. They got it all, you'll assign it, you'll give it to them based on what was sent out, but they can change that if they want to. And like I said, we don't collect the student information, so you will need to keep track of that, of who is on what team, in a separate document or spreadsheet. And that is important. If your students happen to win one of the competitions or place there, then that's the time I will ask just for their names, so that we can, well, for one, I need to know exactly, how many are on that team, and, prepare the prizes. We do prizes for the competitions. They're nothing, they're not like the most awesome things necessarily, but there's something to recognize them. We invite them to award ceremony. If they're first place, you'll get a banner that you can hang in your classroom. Students will get medallions. They may get, some other kind of memorabilia, different things like that, certificates. So, and obviously be invited to the awards luncheon. We hold 3 different regional ones. So if you do manage to place within the top 3 in your region, according to grade level in the competition, so it actually breaks out quite a few different ways, then you'd be eligible for that. And so we'd love it if that, if your teams make it, we'd be very happy to, honor them that way. All right. So the student logins give them access to an online trading platform and $100,000 in virtual cash, where they put in trades that are simulated as if they were done in the actual market in real time. So all the trades are done in real time, and there's a little bit of a caveat there, and I'm going to cover that later in the session. Everything is simulated and it's done in real time, but not all the summary information updates real time. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but all the trades are done as if they were on the actual market. The servers are actually connected directly to one of the Wall Street firms. So it's a very realistic simulation on the back end. And when they put in the order, they can kind of see, where that's going to be. And, when they put in, they see the last price, but just like if they were putting a real order in, unless they put a limit on that order, just because it's $30.17, if they put in an order for the trade, whatever it would hit the market at that time is what they'll get. So it may move, it might be 30.19, it might move to 30.15, just depends how volatile the market is right then. It could move quite a bit. So they will be able to monitor their performance on the platform and will compete against others in their region and across the state, session dependent. So if you signed up for the year-long session, you're going to be competing with other year-long teams, the fall session against fall teams, and the spring session against spring teams. There's also enrichment sessions, which are not competitive. And mostly those are just for the purposes of offering even more options to you as teachers in case, one of the competitive sessions doesn't fit your schedule. But most of the teachers sign up for the competitive sessions just because they give a little bit of something extra. And otherwise, the platform and everything else is exactly the same. So you might as well give your students the opportunity to compete for, some prizes and recognition and that kind of thing. So lastly, the teacher logins will give you access to the teacher support center containing lesson materials and the ability to monitor your student teams. And I'm going to take you through that. That's what we're going to do. Next is we're going to walk through the teacher support center. And what's important is, so you have your teacher support center login. You got that first thing when you registered. And then in addition, a little bit later, you got an email that contained all your student logins. So that teacher login that goes in the teacher support center, when you enter your credentials, that's what you get. If the students enter their credentials, they get the trading platform. It's not two different websites, one website, one login. When you use your teacher credentials, you get the teacher support center. When the students use their credentials, they get the trading platform. So before I move on to looking at some of the online resources, videos, different things that are available, any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
2 questions. All right. So you talked about the teams. I already set up my information. Can you change the teams at this time? Now,
yeah, I can.
Like the 3 to 5 students.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So that's not something you can do, but all you have to do is just email me or let me know, and I'm able to change it. I can add more teams or remove teams, either way.
Okay. And then my second question, you mentioned that students can change passwords. Can teachers see it in the teacher platform?
Correct. By default, it shows. Yeah, and I'll show you that when we get in.
Okay.
By default, it does show the password as to what it is currently. So you can actually also log in as a student in that way as the teacher. So like if they're having issues with their portfolio, you can look at it with them and stuff like that. So you have all that ability. Some teachers, if they want to show, they want to project the classes, the whole class information, like their balances and stuff to show how they're doing. So you've got your own sub competition going in within your teams. And if you want to do that, then obviously you don't want the password showing. So you just have to let me know and I can turn that option off. That would mean you wouldn't be able to see the passwords, but you could still log in as them. But that's something you have to decide if you want. If you're not interested in showing up that information, then you really don't need to turn the passwords off. But if you want to, you can. And of course, these passwords are generated automatically. So that's why, it's not like someone set a special password here and that's why we can put them up there. But hopefully, they're generally shared passwords as well. So it's not unique to the specific students, at least not within, the way we do it, because we don't know who the students are. So anything else there?
So you were just talking about you can show students how they're doing. If I have 5 classes, I can show my students from all the 5 classes, how they're doing against their peers.
Correct. Yep.
Can you take screenshots of that and show it and then block
Sure.
out the passwords too?
Yeah, if you wanted to do that, you sure could. Yeah. I mean, there's not a special, screenshot button, but you just do it the same. I'm familiar with PCs, so you'd use a snipping tool, but I'm sure Mac has something the same that you could do that.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know what you have, but either way, I think it should work just fine.
Yeah, I have a Mac. All right. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to actually pull up the website here. So let's go ahead, go to the website. Sorry, took me a little bit there. Okay, here we go. Got a few too many tabs open, I guess. All right, so this is my teacher login. So I'm at stockmarketgame.org/login, or just stockmarketgame.org. You can go to the login button. All right, I'm going to go ahead and log in. Sometimes if you noticed, it flashes the password's wrong or something, but it goes right in. Not sure why it's doing that, but I haven't really had issues as far as not logging in. We did have the teacher sometimes have a problem, and sometimes all you have to do is clear your cache, just like do a hard reset. For the PC on a Chrome, that's like Control F5, or on the Mac, I think it's like Control Shift R, something like, or Command Shift R. Anyway, basically just clearing your cache, whatever you're familiar with. Just saying that in case you have an issue. But if you do have any issues, please reach out to me, and I'll see if there's something going on. Hopefully we haven't had issues for a while. We had a little bit last fall, but the spring went fantastic. We had like no problem. So it's just sometimes little things creep up. So I'm going to start. There's a couple different things I want to cover here. So just to show you some of the different resources and different things. So when you log in, right, because I enter teacher credentials, I get the Teacher Support Center, and there's a number of different items. Specifically, we're going to start with the Start Here section. And then eventually we'll look at the Stock Market Game Essentials, and then maybe some of the others. But so let's go ahead and with the Start Here section. All right, so it's just got some information. One thing, I'm just going to pull up a few of the handouts so you have some idea. A lot of this is optional. It depends. Some of you may be doing this with your whole class. Some may be doing it as a club, etc. There could be lots of different use cases. So I'm just going to show you some of the things that are available to you. Now, we said that you can have from 3 to 5 students. There's a roles handout here. I just clicked on it, and it's just got 5 different options of different roles that students could have within the team. You don't have to use this. You can if you want to. And if you have only 3 people, well, then someone's going to have to do multiple roles. You can let the students formally decide, what they're going to do. You could assign it, or you could just, leave it as it is. You could hand this out and they can look at it, and, however you want to handle that. I just want you to know that these are the kinds of resources that are available, so that if you want them to actually think about it, and as part of an overall activity you assign where they have a report on how they decided what they did and whatever, then maybe you want to use that role handout so that it can be something that they can use when evaluating their team and how the overall process went. So there's lots of different ways you can use that. All right, the View Team Portfolios we'll get to later, but that's what I was talking about, where you can see the passwords and stuff. So we'll look at that one later. You also get it straight from the main screen, but in the Start Here, that's another way to get it. Okay, then there's Tools for Teachers. We're going to look at this video tutorials in a little bit, because we're going to do that in another section. But I'm going to pull up the SMG calendar. If you weren't aware of this, this is actually from the national organization. So I'm the coordinator for Pennsylvania. I run it throughout the state, but the stock market game is run in all 50 states. And so we work underneath the SIFMA Foundation to offer it here in Pennsylvania. So they also have some national webinars. Like here, what I'm doing right now is just for teachers in Pennsylvania, but they have some other things going on throughout, and you'll see there's lots of different webinars on the calendar there. You can just click on it, and you can check out anything that looks interesting to you. They have some different programs like Invest Right, Invest It Forward, a couple other things you can add on to the stock market game. Not going to get into too much of that today. I don't want to throw too much at you, but there's there's a lot there. So just so you know that I'm always here. You can always reach out to me, but there's also additional resources at the national level too that they have, where you can attend webinars and things like that. Okay. So again, there's mini lesson videos, and again, I'm going to cover these a little bit later in another section. I think there's another place they've laid out. Sometimes things are available in more than one section. Student activity packet. Now, you may not use this, but I would just want to show you, like, let's say it depends upon how engaged you are with the students and how much class time you have. This is something that you can hand out to a student if you wanted to, if they're going to be doing more on their own. It's a fairly lengthy document, but this would be more the kind of thing where like maybe you're doing it as like a mixed group of students, where you've got like a gifted thing, and you've got like maybe 3 or 4 students, and someone else had, and some of them are doing stock market games, some of them are doing something else. So this is the kind of thing where it's a little bit more of a self-guided type thing. So I just want to show you this kind of information there. It's a lot of information and different things that you can give to the student to encourage their self-study, and then maybe work with them on some things. So that's what that is, and I just wanted to show you that exists. So a lot I kind of want to show is how some different things work, and where we have different things where you can find them. And then last one there is the student handouts, which is just this is like a summary of a number of the different things that you can hand out to the students to make things a little bit easier. There's some stuff here that talks about how to enter a trade, and we're going to go over that. We've got a couple online resources that I think are really good, like they're short videos. If you have the ability to show those to your students just to introduce different things about the stock market game, it takes a little bit of the pressure off of you. To actually like show them how to use the platform and stuff. It's pretty intuitive, but I think it could be helpful too for some students, depending on their grade level, especially to get into it. So there's a few different things here, and we'll look at some of those things a little bit later. So let's go on and let's look at the rules. So we're not going to look at all of them, but if you click on the national rules, that's basically what we follow. We have a couple local things. You don't have to read this. But sometimes people will ask me something and the answer is in the rules. And so I'll, just have to say, well, here's the reason why that is. There's a couple different things. One of the main things to note is with the transaction rules is the minimum market capitalization for stocks is $25 million. So the stock market game is already a short competition, right? Even the semester longs are only 10 weeks usually. So that's not a long period of time for stocks. So it tends to be volatile anyway, and it tends to be a little bit more gamey, which is okay because we want the students to be able to explore, to play around a little bit, but we don't want to make it just like a casino, basically. So the idea is there's some of the stocks that are naturally more volatile, not as investment grade. And so for your smaller stocks that are worth less, they have a market capitalization of less than $25 million. They would be in that, that penny stock category that you can't, that typically that would have a lot more volatility. So we don't allow investing in them. And so the system will automatically take care of that. If they try to purchase one of those, they can't. Let me say it's not common. Like there's not a lot out there that you would find that are 25 million. That's like the kind of, they're the kind of stocks you'd hear about from your uncle's brother or something like that, well, yeah, that you might want to buy. The same thing goes for if stocks are worth $3 or less per share. If they trade below that, they're not available for purchase. So it's all the same kind of thing, just to make it so that it's not like just a risky thing that wouldn't apply at all to real life. We know that it's a game, and so the students will take more risks than they would in real life, but we want to minimize that a little bit. Just put a couple of breakers, if you will, on it so that it becomes a little bit more of a learning tool in addition to, to kind of balance that. Let them have fun, let them explore, let them do more risky things than they would in real life, but let them still use it as a good learning tool and understand, and develop some good practices as well. So getting that balance. Also, you have to buy and sell in 10 stock increments. There is let's see, where is that there? One thing to know that I guess I should mention that all of our accounts are margin accounts. So you start with $100,000 in cash, but you can actually purchase up to $150,000 from the beginning. That's your opening ability. So they can buy on the margin. All of them start that way. So they can actually invest more than 100,000. Now it calculates it automatically, as the stocks increase in value or they sell out or however that works, then they might be able to buy even more. So it factors all that in automatically, and they can see the formulas if they really want, how that all works. The other thing I wanted to say is, let's see, where's the maximum equity rule? That was the one that I wanted to highlight. Let me see it. Any questions while I'm looking this up? I don't see maximum equity rule. Oh, I know where that is. That's a local rule specifically because you can alter it. Okay, I mean, really, other than that, most of the things, I guess the other thing to emphasize is that they can only buy something that's traded on the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. Obviously, those are the two biggest ones in the US, but they can't trade, the stock market game does not work to trade something that's traded on a foreign exchange. Like, if memory serves me right, Nintendo is a Tokyo listed stock. They can't buy Nintendo. There's other proxies they could do in between, but we don't want the student staff to get into trying to worry about currency fluctuations in addition to all the rest. So just the NYSE and the NASDAQ, that's it. And then I'm going to look at local rules. So these are the additional Pennsylvania rules. In order to be eligible for the competition, you have to make a minimum of 3 trades by the end of the game in order to qualify for the competition. We don't spell it out any more than that. So, technically you might not do all that much, but a buy, a sell, a buy was technically 3 trades. That's the minimum. That's not what we're expecting you to do. And we don't think that would likely be the winning portfolio. Minimum of 3 trades. It's an example, like, for how well some teams have done in the past. We had not this last school year, the school year before that, we had a team that did the spring session, and they started with $100,000 and they ended with over $1 million. Now, that's not the norm. I think last year the top winner was they ended with something like 400 and something thousand. So it does happen. Obviously, they're playing very often when that happens. And you're looking at the high school teams that do that. But some of the teams, they take to the competition, and that's not, now granted, that's also not that common. Like, there's also teams that do that strategy. They may also lose a lot. So there's a little bit of that. And, I find I was able to talk to some of those teams, and I was glad to hear that, they were saying, yeah, it was great to learn this and go through all this. They said, but no, if it was my real money, I wouldn't be quite as aggressive because, it's not real. But they did learn, because some of them also lost money. Like that team that made $1 million, they lost a lot in between. And they said they learned a lot from that too, because they got to experience the pain of losing without really having the pain of losing. So even the team that made a lot, it made some mistakes, and they got to see what that was like and how not fun that was. And so it really helped them to get an overall sense of, if they are going to be trading in the market, how careful are they going to be, and how are they going to learn some of those, some of those boundaries. And this is the one I wanted to emphasize here. Teams may not invest more than 30% of their total buying power in any one company or fund. If a stock or fund in a team portfolio increases in value and places the investment above 30% of the total equity, they will not be able to purchase additional shares of that stock or fund. It's the maximum equity rule. What does that mean? Just to boil it down, it means you can't load up and put all your money in Apple. Like, you have to diversify at least somewhat. We actually allow up to 30%. That's pretty high, but there were some reasons why we ended up allowing up to that amount. So if they want to spend all their money, invest all the full up to the, including the margin, 150,000. If they want to do that, they're going to have to buy at least 3 different companies, but since it's 30%, really a little bit of another one. So, the idea is they can't just make one trade, one company, invest it all in that. They're going to have to make multiple companies in order to be able to fully invest. And oftentimes you'll find teams will just purchase about 20% or something if they really like a company a lot. And then then another day, they'll invest another 10% in another company, and they'll hold some of those and they'll sell out of them. So, but we just enforce a little bit of diversification, not even that much, but just some. What happens there is, let's say they buy up to that 30%. And then the stock goes up in value. So now they're holding like 32% in a stock. That's okay. They're not forced to sell. They can stay, even if, however that worked out, even if it really climbed up to 50% or whatever, because it just skyrocketed in value, they'd still be fine. They don't have to do anything, but the system will just prevent them from purchasing additional shares. Every time they go to purchase, it would calculate what they have and what they would have after the purchase is done. And if it's over that 30% of their available investment buying power, they wouldn't be able to do it. So they wouldn't be able to invest additional until that would be below their 30%. Then that's the only time that they could do that. And then the rest is portfolio rankings receive real-time pricing. Your rankings are updated daily. And then rankings for the fall and spring sessions are based on total equity, while the year-long session rankings are based on performance against the S&P 500. That they can see where they are rankings, and we'll look at that in a little bit here. Not that you'll see that much, but you'll be able to see their rankings throughout, where they rank in their region. Now, region is not just geographical region; it also includes the grade level, broken down by where they're at in the session. So it's pretty accurate. But you know, at the end of the session, when I'll do calculating the winners and stuff, and it's possible, you know, sometimes teams get disqualified because maybe they didn't make enough trades. You know, sometimes that happens. And so it's possible that, you know, your team may think they're fourth or something, and they actually end up being third because of the, you know, another team, well, they only made 2 trades. They were 2 really good ones, but they didn't make the 3rd trade, so they'd have to get disqualified. So, you know, it's always until it's final, it's not final, if you will, but they are able to track their performance across the spectrum. In addition, even if they're first in the region, we also give a little bit of something extra acknowledgement if they're first in the state. So by grade level. So they may be, you know, first in the region, but they also then may be first in the state. There's no way for them to see that exactly where they are. They can look at the overall coordinator rankings, and that is statewide, but it also includes different grade levels. So when they look at that one, they may see some other teams that they may be like 4th when they look at that, but they still could actually be first in their grade level. So they, you know, it's something where, you know, even if they're first in the region, they might still want to keep pushing to really try to be first in the state to get that acknowledgement as well. All right, any questions on this? Okay, I think we're good with that then. So I'm going to keep on going back here. So I'm going to go back to home again. I'm going to keep working through the start here for just a minute. And we went over the national rules, the local rules. Here's a little rules handout. You can just click on it. It's a really nice, easy, like table type. Yeah, well, let's click on that. So if you want to look and hand this out to your students, something really easy for them to comprehend, just like the basic ideas of you know, what you can get, what you can do. So the most important rules are summarized here. And then there's a little rules quiz if you wanted to ask them about it. Now, we're going to get to this in a minute, but I want to show you a couple other things we've got available. But here are what we call the core lessons, and there's 10 of them. So again, this is just the start here. Let me just get back so everyone's clear where we are. Let's just go back to the home there. Ooh, let's go back to resources, teacher support center. Right, so when you log in, right, this is the page you get. And then still clicking on start here. And then if you scroll down, you've got your program units and lessons. And you can select this. Right now, it defaults to elementary. If you've got middle school or if you've got high school, you just select that. And all that does is basically we've got 10 what we call the core lessons. And it just gives you more age appropriate assignments, questions, reading, etc. So I'm just going to click on the middle school one here, and I'm going to bring up what is a company. And just to show you an idea about what is available, so you have some idea of the lessons that are, you know, the different things you could use. So this, what is a company? And this is to explain, you know, what a company is, etc. You've got your suggested time. Most of the lessons are 45 to 50 minutes is about what it suggests. Obviously, you can have that fit, you know, whatever needs you have, but that's the suggested time. It gives you, you know, different vocabulary words based on your grade level, different things that could be taught. And inside this, it comes with materials, comes with some suggestions, springboard activities, procedures, etc. And all of this is available to you right now on the Teacher Support Center. If you've already signed up, you know, you have all of this, even if the training hasn't started, you know, depending whatever session you signed up for, it's all available so you can look at that. So just sort of scroll down a little more. Sometimes they've got some research materials and they've got some links to it. There's an assessment, different ways you can assess them, different things you can ask them. And this one, I like this one especially because it's a good, it's about the stories down here at the bottom there. The chocolate company, it's a good Pennsylvania one. So talks about Milton Hershey and his, you know, his starting the Hershey company. So goes through a story of his life and how he, you know, he had some pretty big failures before he eventually managed to get something that was profitable and a business that worked. So that's a good one. That's a what is a company. We have, so you have a few different things there. Any questions on that? I'm going to show you a couple other things that are available. Like there's some mini videos that go along with the lessons. Okay, so far so good. So again, you don't have to do all of these 10 core lessons, but they're just like suggestions. We call them the core because they probably have like the most important things to go over. But I'll show you another place where you can get more curriculum that also is like, it depends how long you're running the program and how much you're able to do. So you can go and you can get even more information. So you've got understanding SMG. That one's probably not quite as important, but again, if you want to go over through some of the fundamentals, I highly recommend at least these first three, especially that what is a company, what is a stock. Those are really great to do before they enter their SMG portfolio. But if you can't do it, like, everyone's got different schedules. At least if you could get one of them in, like what is a company, be great. But there's the ideal, and then there's what you get to do in the real world. So those are the things we suggest. But in the real world, if you're saying, well, I won't get to be able to do these lessons for like 2 or 3 weeks, then do you really want to hold off on not letting your students trade for that long? I'd say probably not. I'd probably at least let them get into the platform a little bit, because then they'll be a little bit more engaged with the lessons if they start doing some of the practice. So, usually the ideal is maybe if you've got if you can get 2 lessons in, one maybe to go over like what is a company, something like that, like 2 hour-long sessions, and maybe another session to do going over the rules and different things like that. And then, if you can even do that and then start trading the next, on Monday or whatever. Now, again, that's not like you have to do it that way, but that's just a nice way you can use to introduce the program. And they can start doing some on Monday, and then you kind of work in, if I don't know how much time you're going to have, if you have them twice a week, that can work pretty well, where the one time you're doing a lesson with them, and then the other time you're doing more going over their portfolios and letting them spend time doing research in class and different stuff like that. So that's often a pretty good way which you can use the resources. Any questions? Okay, so yeah, like I said, you've got the different grade levels. So elementary, middle, or high. You just click on that. You click on the PDF, and then you've got the materials, and you can use those however fits best with your how you need to run SMG with your students. So there's the rankings, and we'll go over this a little bit later elsewhere. So there's a couple other things. Talks about Invest Right. Talks about Invest It Forward. Those are basically additional programs. You'll probably get some emails from me talking about them. Invest It Forward is simply a way you can basically get a business professional volunteer to share with your class. I believe they're starting to do in person now. They still had been remote. It's probably going to depend where you are and how things are going, what professionals we have in the area, whether they'd be able to come in person. But you certainly could make that connection, perhaps, if that's what you want, or if you're okay with remote. They're just starting to get back to that. And basically, we make it easy on your end. All you have to do is to request a volunteer. Basically, you just sign in, you create a registration on the Invest It Forward website, and you'll have that profile. You can keep that one for years. SMG, you do have to sign up for a new session every time, but Invest It Forward, you'll create one registration. You'll keep that forever. Connected to your email, and you can request, say, hey, I'd like to have a financial volunteer. Then we work on the back end to try to get one to match up for whatever it is you need in your area as best we can, and we connect you with that volunteer, and then it's up to you to work out the schedule and however that works. So we do like the facilitating of finding someone who's interested in providing the volunteer stuff, and sometimes they'll be sharing a lesson of some sort. They'll maybe give some things that they've done and how they got into the financial career or whatever. So it can be great for students if they're don't even know what a financial professional is or what that would entail. Something that could be useful for them. So, and Invest Right is another program you can do in addition, and it's an individual competition. So where students write a essay about a particular topic, and we haven't quite released yet for the fall what that topic's going to be. Those dates and the topic's coming out soon. But that's a nationwide competition. They can write an essay about some kind of investment related topic, and they do it individually, not as a team. So it doesn't mean everyone in your class has to do it. When we've got 20 students in SMG and only 5 do this, Now you could incite the whole class to do it. Some teachers do that, and some do it as a voluntary thing. Those students that are, really extra achievers, they can do it, and then they can compete for some really great prizes, like all expense paid trip to Wall Street. Laptop has been one. We've had some pretty good finishes in Pennsylvania. We've got in the top 10 a number of times. So love it if your students are interested in that as well. So that's another program you can add onto the stock market game. Again, I just wanted to show you a few of those things. All right, everyone with me so far? Open, yes.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so I'm going back to the Teacher Support Center, and I want to show you a few of the videos that we have available. So I'm going to go to the Stock Market Game Essentials, okay? And there's a couple ways to get here, but I want to show you a few of these, and I'm just going to start playing this, but just to show you an idea. This one is the Stock Market Game Trading Portfolio. So this is a little tutorial you can show your students. It's 6 minutes long, so it's really short. But it just goes over the portfolio, and I'm going to be going over the portfolio with you here in class, but I just want to, or training session, whatever you want to call this, but I'm just going to pop it here for a second.
The Stock Market Game Trading Portfolio. We'll be highlighting a few important sections and pages in the student trading portfolio. We'll be covering account summary, rules of the game, enter a trade, transaction notes, pending orders, and account holdings.
So I just kind of want to show, so that's how they are, they're like that, and they'll just go over step by step. How do you do the stock market trading portfolio? How does it work? Different things. So it's really a tutorial for them, 6 minutes, and they're going to walk them right through it. There's also, so if you with these little things, you've got more, there's one that goes over the rules for them if you want to do a video for that. And again, some of that depends how much class time you have with them. Maybe you don't have as much class time, direct interaction, or you've got mixed groups, and it's going to be easier for you, like give some this and some a different thing. So, this is another resource you can use for that. There's another one that goes over entering the stock trades. So there was one that specifically goes over the portfolio as a whole to show them where they find all these different things. And then there's another one that says, how do you enter a stock trade? And it walks them right through it, just in case they need that. Also mutual fund trades, which are almost the same, but there's a slight difference. And then you've got your bond trades as well. So there's those. And then what might be, so those are great. I really recommend them. So again, this is the Stock Market Game Essentials. Here's SMG mini lessons. And well, there's one in beginning your journey, but I want to pull up a different one here. There's Intro to Investing and Intro to Companies. This one ties in. So like this Intro to Investing ties in. We didn't look at that lesson, but there's Understanding Investing ties in with that one. And then the next one, Intro to Companies, ties into the lesson we talked about, what is a company, with the Hershey. That one I pulled out. Now, granted, it's not actually talking about the lesson, but it's the same kind of concepts, and they're like 3-minute videos. There's 10 of these, so they go along with your core lessons. So if you want to have a little something in addition to, the paper and those kinds of things, you want to have something a little on top of it, there's little 3-minute videos. I'm just going to let this one play for about a minute.
Intro to Companies. In this video, we're going to learn what's a company, product, brand, public company, and private company. Do you know the name of this soda? Do you know who makes it? Do you know the name of this one? Who makes this one? These sodas, Pepsi and Pepsi Wild Cherry, are two products made by the same company, PepsiCo. A company is a business formed to manufacture or supply products or services for profit.
Okay, so just to give you an idea, those are the kind of things that are available, and they have them available for almost all the lessons. So depending on your circumstances and how well that fits in with your overall plan, there's something that can be nice to supplement, maybe some of your in-class time or however you want. We just wanted to, let you know that those things are available to show you. And that there's, like I said, there's one for each of the lessons. So again, something to give a little bit different, just to break up some of the things a little. Additionally, if you want to know, like, well, okay, so I'm planning this out. How do I plan out what I want to do? So we have a couple 10-week curriculum map, and there's a 32-week curriculum map. And these are just suggestions. But the idea is, if you're not sure exactly where to get started, this just maps out some different things that you can do to go over in each week. right? So here, this one, it talks about in the week 1, talking about understanding SMG, etc., going over a couple different things you could do. Then week 2, you've got the lessons, what is a company and what is a stock, what is a company is the one we looked at, what is a stock is the next one. There's some training videos you could show them about portfolio view, entering trades and research, etc. And then you've got, invest it forward, we talked about that already. Anyway, so the idea is there's a 10-week pacing calendar. If you've got your own plan, you've got your own thing you want to do, great, more power to you, go ahead and do that. But here's something, if you're just not sure exactly where to go and what to do in during the times, then here's a little curriculum map for you. Again, it's available right in your teacher support center, gives you some ideas about how you can do it with your students. So we try to make this as easy as we can for you. And obviously, it says week 1, so there's different things like, we're pretty close to the start of the fall session. So, exactly what you're able to do and during that, because these are kinds of things that you don't have to wait till the start of the session to do. I know we're getting pretty close to it because it starts on the 26th, or for the year long, it's already started. But if your teams don't get trading like the very first day of opening, or if in the case of the year long, they already missed the first week, that's not a problem. It's perfectly fine. It happens all the time, not just to new teachers. The way schedules are, maybe they don't get their students all fit into the class at the, right at the beginning, and fall schedules are changing, etc. It's not a problem. You just do the best with what you think you can for your students. So, I do encourage you to get trading as soon as you can. And if that means, I do like that you at least cover the what is a company first. I think that's useful. But then you can kind of go into the more as you go. Now you might say, well, if I haven't covered what even the stock is, how can I let them trade? Well, some of that can be, they don't have to invest their whole thing. It might be something as simple as, if you just wanted to get them wet, okay, pick a stock, and you just ask them, what are some stocks, and someone says Apple, or what are some companies, like, what do you have? What shoes do you like? Okay, I like Nike, or I like Reebok, or whatever it is, right? And then they can invest in those different companies. So, if you're wanting to get them started, if they already have ideas, great, but you could encourage them, okay, just buy like 10 shares of some company that you've heard of, and they do that. If you're not able to get everything ahead of time, you can have simple ways to get them at least active a little bit, because then they'll have some performance to track and get them engaged as you go over more of the lessons. So those are just some ideas. And maybe, your students might get so into it right from the beginning that you really don't have to do that. But those are some different ways you can do to just help get the process going and help your students get everything they need from that. So that's the 10-week curriculum map. There's also the 32-week, the same kind of thing. We already looked at some of these different things. And then there's a guide as well. If you want, I'm hoping to give you as much information as I can, because this is a lot of reading, but it just is 22 pages. But honestly, it could be very useful. If there's some specific questions you have, like there's one here about how, or is it? Yeah, involving parents. If that's something you're interested in, it just gives some different ways you might be able to do that. Talks about time commitment and stuff, different things. So there's a few different, there's some things that it could help you there too if you have specific questions. But like I also said, feel free to go ahead and reach out to me. I'm more than willing to help you as best I can. All right, I'm going to jump back now, back to the main part of the Teacher Support Center. And we talked about the view team portfolios. That's where we're going to go now. And this is where you'll see your teams. Now, right now, I only have one class, all right? It's a training class, and that's the team ID, right? And this is where I talked about it. You can see the password right there, okay? So this is where, so like, let's say, so there's an option to turn this off. So it would just show X's if you wanted to show this. But like you said, you could actually just snip it, right? And you could just snip just that portion of it and not go to the password, and then you'd see everything. So one thing that's important to know here is, let's say right now my team is my class name. Well, it's the training class here, but my nickname, and so how I'm going to appear on the rankings, is PA86ZZ7. That's not really very informative. But your students will want to be more creative, and they can establish their own nickname, but only you as the teacher can enter it. So they would have to give you the information. You know, you never know what students are going to put out there. And since it's going to be public, you know, we don't allow that. So, but you as a teacher do. So all you have to do is you'll have different classes, right? So for this one, I'm just clicking on the training class. And right here is where you're going to do it. And I'm going to type in the nickname, and I'm going to call it the winners. All right. And I'm going to hit update nicknames. And now I am the winners. So if I go ahead and close this window, and I'm just going to refresh this page. And now the nickname is the winners. And that is going to, so when it prints on the rankings, that's what it's going to show. It's going to show us the winners. So that's how you as a teacher can do that. That's how you can enter it. You go and view your rankings and portfolios, and then you can go ahead and for each class is where you'll assign the nicknames. If there was more than one class, you just click on, they'd be all listed here with all the different teams to be listed here. To view the rankings, that's also right here. So view print all rankings. And right now, this is the trial session here. So I'm not even sure how many teams there are. I'm just going to look at the top. And yeah, it doesn't show anything. And that'd be because it is a trial session. So that's why it doesn't even show up. So sorry about that. Yeah, we're not going to be able to see the rankings here because it's just a trial session. It's not an actual competitive session. So we're not going to be able to see the rankings right now. But that's where you would see that. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the home. Any questions on this page? Okay, I'm going to just go back to the home. And in case you're wondering, there's assessments and standards. So if you want this kind of stuff for your, if your school wants you to do like a pre-test and post-test, that's available here. So if you want to do some pre-test stuff and then post-test and see how well your students have improved or what they've learned, it's something administration may want, you can certainly do that here. That's the assessments. You can also click on the standards. So the lessons are standards aligned. So I'm just going to click Pennsylvania here because they're specific to Pennsylvania. And like, for instance, this is useful if like your administration wants to know, or it might not be, maybe some PTO group wants to know, well, what kind of stuff, if you're doing the stock market game, are you just detracting from what they're actually learning? And you can kind of see like, so let's click middle school and choose a subject of mathematics. And then this shows what these are the different standards for mathematics there. And these are the different lessons and what they align to. So which ones, so some obviously for mathematics, a lot more of them align. If you have something different like social studies, then you're going to have a few different lessons and only a few of those lessons are really going to align well to the social studies groups, but it just depends. They're going to align more to different things. So all that information is available. And so if you're wanting to say, okay, we need to hit this standard or that standard, you can see which lessons might be the best to do that. And it can help you overall, or help your administration to make sure that you're fulfilling, what you need to fulfill. Any questions on that?
How did you get to that?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, how did you get to that page? What did you click on?
Sure. So I'm just going to go back to the home there, and it's assessments and standards.
Thank you.
Yep, assessments and standards. And then it starts off by default at assessments. So then and that's where you get the pre and post test. And then standards is where you can choose to see which standard aligns to. And then there's also rubrics. So if you want to have some of those, critical thinking rubrics, et cetera, that are already done for you. There's a number of different rubrics there that may fit what you need. So we really do try to give you, a lot of different stuff that fits a lot of different use cases. So yeah, there's that. And we already talked about Invest Right. We talked about Invest It Forward. Additional curricula. And this, I'm not going to go into too much, but this is basically, you can find other things. Most of this, like the number one, understanding SMG, that's the first lesson we call the core lessons. The individual stuff is here. I find it's often easier just to get that stuff in one package all together on that start here section where we were in the beginning. So I prefer to get it there, but there is more stuff here. If you're wanting other lessons, like, after the core lessons, or you're looking for something else, you can filter this by different subjects. You can go through different things, and there's a lot of different things here, more material. So some of this may be more useful as you get in and you found that you've used quite a few of the things and you want to find something else. that's probably more often where you're going to be using this. So that's like the main bars. And you've got a couple other things. You can add teams, but you can't really. All this does is put a request into me to add teams. You're free to use this to do it, or you can just shoot me an email through your normal email system. Whatever works for you is fine. If you want to add teams, I could go ahead and add them for you. This is where you can change your own personal password, and then troubleshooting help desk are basically, just a kind of additional resources. Most of your stuff is just going to be coming just to contact me is generally the best way. Sometimes, like if it's a platform issue, I won't necessarily be able to work to fix it, but I'll be able to alert the national, the national team and the IT guys who are working on that behind the scenes. And if I know it's an issue, then I can also, if I get a couple contacts and I know, oh, okay, wait, this is a system-wide thing, we can get on this right away. So if you ever have any problems, just go ahead and contact me. Lastly, they've got participation certificates here. So you can print those for your students if you want to. If your students place in the top 3 in any of the competitive sessions, they'll be getting certificates directly from me. But some teachers also just like to have a general participation certificate for all of their students. So you're more than welcome. We have just a sample there that you could fill in, print out, however you'd like there. So just in case. All right, we're going to move on from the teacher section to then look briefly at the SMG trading platform. But before we move on, any questions as it relates to this?
I guess I have another question. So like with a lot of online programs, they tell you like an average amount of time the student should spend on it. Is there like an average amount of times that students should be checking their portfolios and trading?
That's a good question. The thing is, it's varied enough that I don't think I can give you like an average they should. Like, I think it's good to have at least 2 hours in the week where 1 hour is like your more instruction time, with maybe part of it being for like research and stuff like that, and at least checking their trades, at least looking how they are. And then you got another time that is another hour, which is more in-depth research and time. But then I generally would encourage the students also to be able to check it maybe 15 minutes here, or in a couple other days, in case the market's really moving on them, maybe they want to do something. Like I gave that example of that one team that ended with like $1 million. Yeah, they were day trading. I mean, they were trading every day, multiple times a day. So, that's not something you really have to do. And obviously that's going to happen more at the high school level. It'll probably depend on what, grade level you're at. But I think you'd want to be able to devote 2 hours a week if you can. I mean, it's not like, I think that would be a good goal to have, where part of that time is instruction and part of it is trading time. And even if that time when you're doing the lesson, if you want, which is like 50 minutes, 45 minutes, if they could have another half hour for reviewing and going over stuff, that'd be great. But you don't always have that. So I think there's a little bit of time constraints, but I think an hour worth of research and trading and evaluation is in a week, I think is a good thing to have. But it might be easier for you to break that up about 20 minutes a day, if you have that. It just depends on what you have with your students. But I think that's, daily is probably better if you can break it up to give them multiple times in the week, but it just depends on your schedule.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else on that? Okay, so I'm going to go in then to my trading portfolio. So now I'm as the teacher, and now I'm going to go into the student account that I created. And again, the students, if I handed out this credential, that PA86ZZ7, right, and the password of test, I'd give that out to the students and they'd be able to log in the same place I do. But as the teacher, you can just click on the team ID here and it will launch it. So as a teacher, I'm now into the student trading portfolio. All right. So a couple things. I'm just going to kind of go over a few places where you find different things. So it starts off on the home, but that's also the account summary analyzer. It's the same thing. It's kind of what the default is. So let's just go over a few of the things. All right. So the advisor or teacher, that would be your name, right? And then be your school there, and they've got the team ID. We're the winners. This would probably be, it would be like Western middle school or something like that, depending whatever geographical or geographical and grade level division they're in. All the accounts will be margin. There'll be total equity. Would depend on whether you're doing real time. I'm sorry, whether you're doing year long or spring. Just has to do with the rankings. It's not something they have to really know. And then all the trading is real time. So let's go over a few of the things. And I just put in a trade the other day just so we'd have something here in the system. This account summary, and this is one thing I want to highlight because this can cause a little bit of confusion. So this account summary is as of September 20th. And so that's as of the opening today. The summary balances do not change in real time. So what do I mean by that? That means like if you put in a purchase today, the system is going to calculate it, and we'll see that. I actually did one earlier today, so you'll be able to see this. It's going to go through, but none of this updates. It'll update overnight, and all those will post. It does calculate it correctly. So all the trading is real time. Like if you try to buy shares of Amazon, and now you're at 29% total relative value of your portfolio, and then you go to buy it again, then it'll kick it out and say, no, you have too much. You'd be over the 30% limit. So it does enforce it all in real time. All the balances take effect real time. Everything happens in real time, but this account summary does not show in real time. So it'd be nice if it did, but in some ways that you can't have it changing all the time for all these fictional accounts that don't have real money, right? Because the investment you'd have to do to upgrade all the servers to handle that kind of traffic to be changing all the time would be a lot for, not really $100,000 worth of value. So I think that's the main reason they don't do it. But another feature though of it is it allows you to actually pick a time in the past and actually see what your value was as of then. So if I go yesterday, I'm sorry. Sorry. Yeah, if I go yesterday and refresh it, I can see I hadn't bought anything. So you can actually see, like, let's say your students want to do some kind of analysis over time. You can see exactly how much the value of their stocks was, their cash was at each day in the various sessions. So you can choose any time in the past. So yesterday it opened at 100. I had $100,056 in cash. And then I actually put in an order yesterday. So but this morning it was, oops, did I not? Maybe it wasn't yesterday. It might have been the day before. I didn't refresh. No, it was. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so I put in the order for stocks, and I'll show you in a little bit where that was. And so my cash went down, my stocks went up, etc. And it actually, I've lost a couple dollars because my investment lost just a tiny bit. So there is a $5 commission for every trade. So it doesn't matter how big the trade is, it doesn't matter how small it is, every trade is a $5 commission. So it can be beneficial for them to do bigger trades rather than a lot of little ones, or that $5 could begin to eat into their margin a little bit. Okay, so a couple things. Remember, like I said, you have margin accounts. So they start with 100,000 in cash, but this opening buying power, that's how much they have to spend today. It starts off around 150,000 because you got about 50% margin. There's a formula for it. And like, for instance, if you click on these things, you can get information. It tells you short form, and then you can hit the read more. And so your students can get a lot more information. So all of these things so that they can learn what's going on. There's a lot of places where they can click on that and it gives them explanation. They learn a lot. Okay, so all that kind of stuff there. There's different kinds of charts that'll come up, but I haven't held anything for that long, so they're not really there. There's a little bit of charting that goes on here. They can change this to different, for instance, GLD is what I bought, and we'll look at that in a minute. So you can chart the Gold Spider Trust, and this is what it did over the day. You can also change this to a month. So obviously they're going to go other places for a lot of this, but they embed a little bit of it directly in the platform for students who just want to see something quickly and don't want to open another website. They can do that. Right. Something to pay attention to, your students, is this news feed. They can have different things just you know, it's just a news feed and there'll be different things to be highlighted there. They don't have to follow that, but if they're looking for different places to do research, that's one place they can do that. Speaking of doing research, I do highly recommend one of those videos we talked about, where they have, you know, they get interested in doing different things. There's one that is how to do research. It's like a 5 or 6 minute video that gives examples of ways they can do research. So I really do recommend that for the students. I think it can, you know, that can be a hard thing for them to get off, like, well, where do I go? What do I even look at? Just to give them some ideas. And that's, again, that's available. It's on YouTube, but that's, you know, you get there through you can find that directly on the teacher platform. Right? One of those video tutorials is where you'll find that one. Okay, so we talked about the rankings. I'm just going to click here. We are first in the region, yay, because there's exactly one team in this training session. So, but this is where your teams, you will see where they are, where they rank overall in their particular region. So once the trading starts, they'll be able to see, and this all gets filled out, you know, and so they'll be able to compete and see how they're doing. And it can fluctuate, right? Especially the way the market is lately. You can have really big moves. So so let's go ahead and look at a few things. So first off, this account summary analyzer, that's where you are, the homepage. It starts at the account summary analyzer. There's the account holdings, and this is just a little chart, right? It shows what I have right now. I just invested, you know, about 5%, just a little bit of money in GLD. Now GLD is, it's actually a ETF, and it's a commodity-based ETF that follows gold. So it basically is, you know, in the competition and in the stock market game, you can only trade things that trade on the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ. Now that's not commodities. Commodities do not trade, right? They trade on the CMXE or something. I can't remember. It's the one out of Chicago. And they're commodities. They're different from stocks. But now there's so many ETFs that basically follow a lot of commodities. You can often find an ETF and you can trade it. And so if the students want to, you know, try some of that as well, they can do that. And you trade those ETFs just as if you were trading a regular stock. They work the same way. Okay, so here's where they can see their unrealized gains or losses in each individual position. So I bought 30 shares of GLD yesterday. This was the cost, and the current price per share is $155.96. So it's gone down by just a little bit base. And so you can see I have unrealized gains. I've lost $1.85. And you can actually hit this trade button, and it'll bring up a default trade to trade that specifically. So you can either buy more or sell some. So that's a quick little shortcut to get there. So we're going to go back here again back to your home page. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and click on your top holdings. And this is just to show what are the top SMG holdings of all national active portfolios. What do students like? Students like Tesla, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Netflix, Nike, Disney, Walmart, etc. Now, I'm sure that this would not be a surprise to anyone, and I'm not encouraging your students to buy this, but sometimes, you know, you've got students that don't know. It's like, well, do you see what other people are doing? Maybe just, you know, if you can't get a team, like maybe it's been 3 weeks and they're just not that engaged, you know, having them buy at least something is probably better than having them do, you know, nothing at all. So, because then at least they can have something to track. So, you know, it can be just kind of fun, I guess, to see what the top value stocks are. Now, obviously right now we're just beginning, so there's not a lot of gains that have begun. So this is going to change, and there'll probably be even more as you go. Transaction history. And this is where they can see, they'll be able to see all the stuff that's happened in the past. So this is just interest. Interest gets credited every week, and it accrues, I think, at 0.75%. That's in the rules. So you just get a little bit of interest every week. And then this is when I made that purchase. Okay. And then let's look at, there's realized and unrealized gains and losses. Nothing's there because I haven't sold it yet, right? Until I sell it, it's unrealized. It says on paper that I've lost like $1.56, but until I sell it, it's not real. So when I go to sell it, that's when I realize the gain or loss. So this will only be here once you've actually bought a position and sold it. And then the rankings, which we looked at before. Now we're going to look at entering a trade. So we are right now after hours. So when I enter this trade, it's not going to go through right away, but I'm going to go ahead and purchase something. Anything you'd like me to purchase? Anyone want to make a suggestion? No suggestions?
Electric
Oh.
company.
Electric company?
Yeah.
As in like General Electric, or because I'm not sure of electric company. I don't know.
Like, yeah, like
Or
GE, Pico.
GE?
Yeah, one of those.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and validate the ticker. I just typed GE, and sure enough, that's it. General Electric company stock. So, oh wow, they're right there. You know, they've rebounded quite a bit from where they were at one point, but their earnings per share is not so great. So maybe this is the time to buy them when they're still low, right? All right, so let's go ahead and buy them. We're going to put in the order number of shares. I'm gonna say 30 shares. Let's preview the trade. All right, it's a buy. GE tells us we're doing all this different things. Generally, you're going to want to always put in a market order on that previous screen. In fact, let's just go back there. Let's go back. All right, let's do it again. GE buy, validate ticker. Make sure I got it right. I did. Okay. There are. You can put in a limit if you want. But in a real-time game, there's not a lot of point in doing that. So it has to do with like, I'd only want to buy it if it is at a certain point. So it's not, it is a limit on how much you will pay. So then you can say, well, I only want to buy GE. In fact, let's pull up GE over here in the ticker. Whoops, wrong one, sorry. GE. So I can see it's over here right now. It's trading about 66.58, and maybe say, okay, I want to buy it if it's 67 or below, but I don't want to buy it if it goes up to 68. Now, obviously with GE, it's not going to spike like that in a matter of seconds. That's just not going to happen with a big company. With small companies, they can really move a lot. But what you'll often find, if students use a limit order, they're not thinking about it in that way, and they'll often put in stuff and the trade won't go through, and they'll just get a little frustrated because they're not realizing what's happening necessarily. They'll get a message, but it can be a little confusing. So typically in a real-time game, what they're going to want to do is market. Now, actually, this is, because I'm putting this in after hours, because it's after 4 o'clock, then it's possible I would want to put a limit order in case it really moves overnight. And that might be, say, I might put in 67. And then it doesn't mean I'm going to pay 67. It means as long as the price is below 67, I would get the trade. So if they're trading after hours, either before the market opens or after it closes, then maybe that's when they want to do it. But that's just something to keep in mind. So I'm going to go ahead and confirm the trade. And it tells me here, trade order is confirmed, but it also says the market is closed. Your order will be executed during the next business day. Right? Because it's closed now, it's after hours. So what's going to happen is it's going to be in the pending section. So we'll look at that in just a moment. So here we go. So let's go, and it's going to be in pending orders because it's after hours. So I can see this order is queued. So I've got it all set to go, and it's all ready to go. Now, sometimes you can cancel, but I think in real-time games, typically once you put the order in, you can't cancel it. So because I don't think, even if I type my password here, I don't think it's going to let me cancel. No, you can't actually cancel it. And I didn't think you could. So, that's where you'll see pending orders. Now, transaction notes in a real-time game, normally, like let's say you're trading anytime between 9:30 and 4 when the market's open. Usually you're doing a real-time trade and you're putting an order, and this is where you'll see if your order goes through or doesn't go through. Like yesterday, I bought GLD, and today I bought the SPY, which is ETF for the S&P 500. Basically trades right along with the S&P 500. So this trade did go through, but because I did it today, it isn't yet reflected in my summary analysis. It will happen overnight. Every night, all the trades you enter for the day will settle, and then you'll be able to see all your active balances. And so when I log in tomorrow, I will see, when I go to my portfolio and my account holdings, I will see that I've also bought additional stocks, and so it'll be SPY. And so this the pie chart there will show stocks with a bigger percentage than what it shows right now. So if I go to purchase more, in fact, let me go at, no, it's not gonna do it because we're not real time. So if you try and purchase more and it fails, then it'll give you a little note here about why it didn't go through. Actually, probably if I do an intentionally bad trade, it probably will show me. Like, let's do SPY again, but let's try to purchase a ridiculous amount of shares. I think it's going to give it to me that, that it can't do it. So it's going to, yeah, I obviously do not have that much money. And there's the little note I get. Exceeds percentage from max equity by to over $2 million, right? Well, obviously that was a trade I couldn't do, but let's go look at the transaction notes and look, that's where they see that. Now, normally they probably weren't trying to do something that ridiculous. So they'll see, a more realistic number of they exceeded it by just a little bit. And what is that telling me? It's saying that it exceeds the max percentage for equity, which means I tried to purchase more of this stock SPY than I'm allowed to purchase. I could only ever purchase up to 30%. Now, honestly, this would have exceeded that, but also it would have been above my buying power. So if it hadn't been above the 30% of my buying power, it was over the total buying power I had too. So it would have failed on multiple accounts. But all right, does this all make sense to everyone? So this is where I hope that's a yes. So if I didn't hear anything, I'm sure that's good. So this is where your students get their portfolio. So that's where they enter their trades, that they can see their account holdings. They can see the most important thing is transaction notes. That's the one you really want to direct them to, because that's where they'll see that either order executed, it went through, or that there was something that happened. It exceeded the max percentage, etc. That's where they're going to want to get that information. They can also from here get the rules of the game. They can get the SMG essential mini lesson videos. That's the one we talked about, those 10 lessons that go along with the core. So if you want your students to see it, they can get it directly from here, directly from the platform. So it's something that's easier for them to get. There's a link to New Day sustainable stocks. There's different stocks that are ranked by New Day as sustainable. And so they can see a list of those. If that's something they're interested in specifically investing in, they can do that. We have some outside links, some glossary of financial terms, change their password, etc. So that's pretty much where we're at with the trading portfolios. Do you have any questions with that?
I have one for you. What do you mean by long stocks? They can't sell anything short, right? So
actually they can. They can.
Okay.
So they can short sell if they want to, and they probably will. I don't necessarily. It's up to you as a teacher. We don't ban it outright for any age group. So it's not common at all among the elementary and the middle school. But amongst the high school, you'll get varying levels where some will do it quite often and others will not. So but they can, yes.
They
so
can. Okay.
Yes. That's correct. In fact, and when they do that in the trade, I didn't really go over that very well. But when you enter the stock trade, there's buy, sell, short sell, and short cover. And there is a difference. So for instance, let's say they short sell something, SPY, they short sell 10 shares. If they want to cover that position, they have to choose short cover, not buy. Because otherwise they will still be short in the position and additionally have bought shares, which is possible, right? People will do that. Although normally you'd rather short cover it. But so I'm just want to point that out. If they want to get out of that short position, they actually have to choose short cover and not just to buy it. Because I had teams did that and they got a little confused before. It's like, no, if you sold short, the way to get out of that position is to short cover, not just to buy additional shares at a different price.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And I guess I covered this that well, but it's similar. Like, let's say we look for GE by doing the validating this ticker, but in the same way, like, let's say you wanted to find it by general, search by company name, then you can just search for it, well, and you'll find a whole lot of different things. So it kind of filters down, and that's generally a good way that they can do that to see what's available. Okay. So a couple other things just to be clear on in case, it gets, I already said you can't trade commodities, right? You can only trade something in the NASDAQ or the NYSE. In addition, we do ban some stocks from being traded. Typically, these are ones that are highly volatile. Like I did say that we do allow short trading, But what we don't allow is there's some funds that are like 2x bear or double leveraged. There's various leverage funds that usually have the 2x, 3x, 4x. Those are being so extra, I don't want to say volatile, or leverage really is the best term. They can lead to such big swings. We don't allow any trading in those. So normally there's a list that it would just, if you tried to purchase it, it would tell you you were not able to because they were blocked. So, but if your students are wondering, that's something you can tell them. Basically when you're, any of those, they usually have 2x, 3x, 4x in the name. Any of those kinds of stocks, we don't allow trading in. And when they're doing a trade, it's this, ETFs are stocks. They trade just like stocks. So when they're putting in, they'll enter a stock trade. If they want to trade a mutual fund, they enter a mutual fund trade. So those are in separate areas there. But ETFs, they'll trade in the stock trade section. And then they also could trade bonds. So they can search for bonds, and there's a whole bunch of different ways they can do this. They can search government bonds, and they can just look, and you can hit the trade, and so they can trade bonds too. Some games have a requirement for bonds. We don't in most of our games. If you do the Capitol Hill Challenge, which is something separate, but that's something that happens in the spring. That's something they do require a certain percentage in bonds. We don't. And oftentimes when the stock market is really moving, students won't want to trade bonds if they want to win. But I don't know, with the way things are going. But of course, if the Fed raises interest rates, that'll really hurt bonds too. So it's an interesting time to be around, right? And going through all this. All right. I think that covers it for everything here.